All right, now welcome back. Now we have categorized our system. We have realized that our system is a high. And so then we want to move to the selection of controls. But before we go to the selection of controls, there are other artifacts that we also produce during the categorization. Remember that when we came to the task that has been given to us, you realize that there are other things that NIST is requiring for us to do. The next thing that is requiring is the risk management process. We call it the FARM. Framing the risks, assessing the risks, and responding to the risks. Now, framing the risks establishes the context and provide a common perspective of how organization is supposed to be able to manage risks. Now, this is the principal output which produces a risk management strategy, and it tells the organization how they can be able to do what? Address or assess risks, respond to risks, and monitor the risks. Now, this farm, when we are talking about framing the risks, what we literally mean is that you are being able to do what? Developing your scope. So this time around, we are trying to develop the scope of the risk that is involved in the environment. Assessing the risks means that here we are identifying, prioritizing, estimating the risks. So we want to evaluate the risks, but after we have framed and know the scope, we are now trying to be able to what? Identify and be able to evaluate the risk that is involved in our environment. After we have done this, and that is where we move to the next stage, that is responding to the risks. We've already talked about risk decisions, so I'm sure you are familiar with that. Then after we do risk monitoring. Risk monitoring means that you are providing organization with the means to verify their compliance and determine the ongoing effectiveness of the risk response measures. So if we are saying that we have accepted the risks, we want to make sure that if we have accepted the risks, there is no other risk or there's no other threat that is being involved. If we say that we are transferring the risks, we want to continuously monitor to make sure that the third party that is in charge of addressing the risks is still in charge of it. And that is what we mean when we say that you are monitoring the risks. Now, we want to go to another aspect that we call the PTA and the PIA. PTA and PIA. What is PTA? PTA means privacy threshold analysis. PIA means privacy impact assessment. Now, what is privacy threshold analysis? We develop artifacts in the categorization process, and the privacy threshold analysis is what we do to determine if the system is going to transmit, process, or store what we call PII. What is PII? PII is any personally identifiable information that can be used to identify someone. Your name, your address, your telephone number, your social security number, your passport number, your driver license, your biometric information, your DNA, your bank accounts, anything that we can use to identify you is what we call a PII. That's a PTA. We are trying to determine if the system is going to process PII. If the system is going to process PII, then you realize that the PTA will come out positive. The positive means that the system is going to process it. If it's going to process it, then we have to conduct a PIA. What is a PIA? A PIA is a privacy impact assessment. We conduct a PIA to determine the kind of PII that our system is going to process. Because this time around, we said we are going to conduct a PTA to determine if our system is going to process any PII. If it's processing a PII, then the PIA has to be done to make sure that we are knowing the kind of PII now our system is going to process, because that has helped us to know whether we need to encrypt our system, we need policies for accessing those information, or what do we need to know, or what do we need to do to be able to make sure that our system is actually secured. Now, when we are talking about it, when is PIA required? PIA is required when we are developing or we are procuring any new technology or a system that is going to handle or collect PII. PIA is required when we are creating a new program, a system, or an information that is going to collect that may have privacy implications. And the PIA is required when we are issuing a new or an updated rulemaking that entails the collection of PII. Now, I'm going to show you a copy of how a PIA and a PTA also looks like. It's just an assessment document that we are going to go through and answer those questionnaires. But I'll show you that shortly. They have a brother or they have a cousin. PTA and PIA, they go together. But they have a cousin, and their cousin's name is called System of Record Notice. What is System of Record Notice? A System of Record Notice is a requirement for federal agencies under the Privacy Act of 1974. Then we call it SON, System of Record Notice. It's generally required when a group of records maintained by any federal system contains PI, and that PI is being retrieved by information unique to the individual whose PI is being retrieved. When these following situations apply, we need to make sure we are connected as SON. And that is when records are being maintained by federal agencies, when records that contain information about individuals are being maintained, and when the records are being retrieved by the personal identifier, we need to make sure that we are sending a copy to the Homeland Security, and that is what the SON is about. Now, let me quickly show you how the PIA looks like, how the PTA looks like, and how the SON looks like. Then we'll come back and we'll come and finish with e-authentication.